All right, let's welcome a veteran of the Detroit media, Emmy award-winning television and film producer, Tony Mottley. Tony, thank you so much for being here.
Thank you, Bankole, for having me.
You've been observing the political wind in Michigan for a very, very long time, and I know you're curious about what the Whitmer administration, now that she's reelected, what she's going to do. I want to get your take, though, in terms of among a list of priorities, what would you like this new Whitmer administration to do? Because I feel like the conversation has to begin now. We can't wait till next year, January, February, to say, let's start talking to the governor.
I think you make a good point. I mean, what she's going to do and what we want her to do,
right?
Two different things.
Yeah.
You got to consider that she's won handily, and the Democrats have taken over the state for the first time in 40 years.
Yes.
So now she really feels if she ever had the wind at her sails, she does right now. She has a mandate. So the question is, what should she be doing? I think in the black community, cities like Detroit, Flint, Saginaw, Muskegon, those places, water, infrastructure is a key issue. Crime is a key issue. Gun safety is a key issue. Gun control is an issue. Right to work needs to be overturned. There are so many things because black people are still at the bottom rung of the ladder. We have been. We've always been there.
Right.
And now, as you see, as America turns more brown, which is scaring the hell out of white folks, we've been overtaken by Hispanics. And we don't have those coalitions. Now, Michigan is unique because we don't have the level of Hispanic population that other states, southern states have. So now is the time. It's time for black people to create a list of demands and make sure that those things happen while you can hold Governor Whitmer accountable, because she's gonna run again. So now, if there's ever a time to leverage her to get what you want, this is the moment. But then again, besides yourself, what other voices are there? Who are the people, who are the organizations, who are the institutions, who are the thought leaders that are gonna help to hold her accountable? Besides voters. Voters can only do so much.
Right.
And I'm so exhausted with people saying about black folks not voting, black men especially not voting. All that, those are just talking points. We've done our job.
Right.
But what have we gotten?
Right, in return.
And I can understand completely why people are frustrated and exhausted with the circumstances that we're living under, because we have given folks our vote for decades.
That's true.
And we have gotten next to nothing.
That's right.
And we know government is like a giant freighter. It change doesn't happen quickly.
Right.
Overnight.
Right.
But in our case, it almost never happens.
Right.
And so in Michigan, now is the time.
Yeah.
So who are those folks that are going to say, Governor Whitmer, here's what we need. Here's what we need you to do, and hold her accountable?
No, I think it's a great question, and I think we have to begin to coalesce, and find a way to channel all of that information to her, and so she understands that these are the needs. This is what needs to happen, because there's a self-interest there for her, and I kept saying this, that like you indicated, we do have leverage because she wants to be able to leave a legacy, and I don't think she wants a John Engler legacy. No. I don't think she wants, a milquetoast legacy. And the way white voters feel about her is going to be totally different from the way black voters feel about her.
Absolutely.
So
and that's okay.
If black Michigan's lives are not made better, then that's not only a complicated legacy, but then that means she doesn't have much with us.
Well, even the good white folks.
Right.
And there are many who coalesce and who support issues that we're concerned about.
That's right, yeah.
They have to understand, as do other folks that don't have our interest at heart, that when black folks in Detroit do better, it doesn't hurt Kent County. It doesn't hurt Oakland County. And we it's this whole idea in America that when you do well, it's taken away from me. It's a lie. There is plenty for everybody. And we've talked in the past about when you have people that have $200 and $300 billion in this country, or maybe $200 billion. That's more than enough money for people. And that wealth is not reflected in necessarily in the state of Michigan, but there's businesses here, there's opportunity here, and what we're asking for most people is very meager. The difference in income for someone in Detroit to go from $24,000 to $35,000 is life-changing.
It is. It is.
And I think it's hard for people to comprehend that you get your paycheck and you have to decide food, gas, rent, insurance, health insurance, and you just don't have enough money to make it. And it really sometimes reflects education, sometimes doesn't, because that discrimination makes black women earn so much less money. Black men earn so much less money. Jobs aren't in our community. You don't have a car, you can't get to a job in Detroit. And having a car and having car insurance that's a deal breaker. So there are things that people deal with every day. These are everyday kitchen table issues for black folks that people need to wrap their arms around. And even some black folks, even in leadership positions, maybe don't understand that.
Yeah, but that's what I was getting at too with the governor, because sometimes we don't have, I call it the wrong negotiators at the table, because they're not going to eloquently explain, or they don't even have an educated understanding, some because they don't care, to really articulate these issues and talk about the fact that these are some of the issues that we need Governor Whitmer to do in her second term. These are the issues that she needs to drive home for black people.
What are the things that are going to make a difference for black people, poor people in these communities? Those are the things that we need her to address. We need that. Affordable transportation, affordable health care, jobs that pay living wages, getting some of these guns off the street. All those things matter. And we live in, people that live in suburban communities are, their number one issue is crime. A lot of black folks live in neighborhoods that have crime. And I'm not saying all black neighborhoods are crime ridden, but those places tend to be where economic standards of living are lower.
Well, I mean,
and that's where we live.
And look at Benton Harbor, Flint. I mean, all this. I mean, they're exhibits of inequality.
And again, when you create the inequality that you're talking about, and it's created it's built into the system.
Disinvestment and all of that.
People are left behind, left without, and life is tougher. It's a whole nother dynamic. I get people that contact me and say, "What's going on in Detroit? What's going on?" Man, you have no idea until you live in those communities, till you visit those communities, till you shop in those communities. When a loaf of bread is maybe a day away from expiration and costs top dollar, when there isn't adequate meat or food or other necessary things in your community, it's difficult. And sure, there's a Whole Foods here and a Myers there, but for everyday folk, they can't get there.
The governor is going to be sworn in January, and I'm sure right now there are other groups who are reaching out to her saying, don't forget, in the next 4 years, these are the things that we need and so forth. And too many times, I think when it comes to us in the black community, people are always asking for an urban agenda.
We don't need that. We don't need that.
Talk about,
we don't need the whole idea of, she did that before, and she was going to have a commission. When
she said a poverty secretary. I mean, you were at the town hall at Martin Luther King High School. You filmed it, actually.
This talk about those kind of things is just talk. And it means that your issues are going to be put on the back burner. We need action now. I don't need a commission. Listen, I don't need a study to tell you folks are hurting, folks are hungry, folks don't have car insurance, folks don't have health. I don't need a commission. That folks are underpaid. We know that. Okay? Schools are failing. Listen, schools aren't failing. Good schools have good families. Families that can make ends meet. Okay? It's when mom is not home when the kids come home because she got to work 2 jobs. That undermines what the school is able to do. We need an agenda that's going to uplift people. And part of what she can do, just like the president can do, is she sets the tone. She has to speak to the needs of our people, people in poor black communities all around the state, and say, this is what I expect business people to do. I expect local governments to do.
I expect the private enterprise in Michigan.
Right.
Yeah.
This is the
Tell
thing.
all the CEOs.
And I have not heard that. And it's so easy. It's a cop-out to say, oh, I don't have to address all that now, Bankole, because I got a commission.
Right.
I'm going to have a group, a think tank, or what.
Right.
I don't care about that.
Right.
I need action. I'm hungry right now.
Right.
So we need that. And I think the leaders, the church leaders, the business leaders need to say, hey, what you going to do about jobs?
Right.
What you going to do about making the cost of living better for people, bring wages up, all that. It needs to happen now.
Yeah. The other side to this debate and this demand on Governor Whitmer is the legislature, like you laid out, for the first time in 40 years. So, I mean, it's not like she can say, well, you know, Bankole or Tony, I want to do this, but, you know, the Republicans are not letting me do this. The legislature is not letting me do this. Now you have the legislature from the same party. They're all Democrats. That means that the governor don't have to use a veto pen.
Right. And you don't have any excuses.
Right.
She's out of excuses now.
Right.
So let's get it. It's time to get it done. And that's why it's more and more important that we press her, because the pathway is clearer than it's ever been in Michigan in 40 years.
Right.
Since John Engler, 1983. Now's the time.
Right.
Let's see some action.
Yeah. I got to ask you about this. I can't have you on without asking you about the media quickly here in terms of how you think the media ought to cover this. Do you have any hope? I mean, you know, you've been a long-time member of this business, and you're also a critic.
Well, I think it's naive to think that local stations and what's happened. We could, that's a whole nother story about who owns the media, whatever. But I just think that status quo is satisfactory to those folks.
Right.
There are people like yourself, and I'm not going to say that's everybody, but for the most part, I mean, on a corporate level, I don't think you can expect the media to participate. I expect that individual powerful voices will have to step up. But then again, it's always been that way. No one has ever really been on our side like that. There's been no network, no station that's been on black folks' side. Okay? But we've persevered, and through much worse.
Yeah.
So I think we have to identify those individual voices. So if there's a news reporter or an anchor or somebody that you know, write them. They're people too. Let them know, hey, what about this? And a lot of times reporters live in silos. They're isolated. And in today's media, they are really overworked and underpaid. And that you're also seeing now the really young reporters coming in, not experienced. They've gotten rid of the veterans. Those people are gone. The reporters that we grew up with, that kind of reporting is gone. So you got new, inexperienced people, and they don't even know the politics.
Right.
So
and they'll be expected to face Whitmer and what she's doing.
And they're just gonna be safe and hang on to the edge of the pool and just go along until someone can get to them and say, hey, you know, when she said this, you should have asked this question. And I know when I was coming up, you had some black folks in the community would call me and say, hey, what about this? What about that? And I think everybody that's watching your show can do that. And you know, we expect them to do so.
Yeah. But finally, on Whitmer, though, this election is being interpreted in different ways. They're talking about all the counties that voted for her and so forth. And I said that black people have always supported Democrats. Your take on that?
Well, I think it's kind of misleading.
Right.
You had this MAGA agenda that was offensive to a lot of folks.
Right.
Okay. And that undercut opposition for her.
Right.
Then you had this abortion rights foolishness with Roe v. Wade. The Supreme Court did.
Right.
And so she had a real clear path. I think her victory reflects the times that we live in.
Right.
But given a traditional opposition, it would have been much stiffer for her.
No doubt.
And she might have even lost.
Right. All right. Thank you so much, Tony, for being here.
Thank you, my brother.
All right. Tony Mottley, a veteran of the Detroit media, Emmy award-winning television producer and filmmaker. We'll be right back with more on Sunday Nation.